the message here, everybody? What
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
The sharks are rallying. They've finally gotten together.
They're tired.
We're getting these boats out of here.
Get out of here. You're in our
I'm sick of the. Well, think about how we react when it gets too hot. Right? The oceans are a little hot.
Angry.
So
Yeah, but they might be mad about all the overfishing and some of that stuff too. It is not a good scene for the sharks with all that as well.
Yeah.
It's the plastic.
Yeah,
And the plastic. Seriously, guys.
So you can see why they're irritated. There's a lot going
that makes
on.
sense.
I'm mad for them. I'm joining their troops. Sorry.
Makes total
Jen, please
sense.
don't attack a catamaran.
Oh, no. You know I wouldn't do that. All right, you guys. Have a good day. We'll keep it going here.
Thanks for choosing America's Morning Headquarters. We're going to get you here through this mid-morning hours here of this midweek day here, Wednesday upon us.
Yeah, the Weather Channel helping you plan for all of your big events ahead. And it's the first full week of fall. Put that in quotes.
Right.
Meteorological fall, legit.
September.
Yeah.
I mean, you start thinking fall things in September. You get cool downs, right? School, back to school for many of us.
But meanwhile, we got cooling centers open because it's too hot.
So
Schools
wild.
can't even stay in session a full day.
It's insane. Eventually, we hope things will cool down to where they should be. But for now, still pretty hot out there, so be prepared for that. And of course, the tropics have gotten busy, staying busy. We have a system that is on its way to being a very powerful one in the Atlantic.
Yeah, this is a rite of passage of fall, right? Going into September, oftentimes the worst hurricanes on the planet find their home in fall in September. And right on cue, we've got one in the books. It looks like it's going to become very powerful, as you mentioned. Lee, that is.
Yes.
In the makings. We got to talk more about Lee's track, so that's coming up this morning.
Yeah.
Well, there is some relief from the heat, but it does come by way of storms in today's big deal. Now, severe threats that lurk over the Midwest as well as the Deep South, just as football fans. Yeah.
I'll take it one step further.
Oh, let's see.
Under an umbrella next to the ocean.
Ah, there you go. Love it, love it. All right, well, keep the comments. The Atlantic Basin continues to blossom with tropical activity. A major hurricane that could form towards the end of the week.
Meteorologist Jim Cantori took a trip to Virginia Tech's Department of Aerospace and Ocean Engineering, which studies hurricane force winds to see how much force is in a Category 5 hurricane. Arkansas will get a break thanks to a front coming through. So we get a break from the heat.
Yes.
Although, of course, that comes with a price.
Yeah, you got to deal with some storms.
We are starting to see the fronts now progress farther south. As typically happens in September. You know, you're not going to get that in July and early August in Texas or even Arkansas for that matter. But now in September, those fronts are making their way southward. And it's about time we got our, good fall front coming in.
It is about time.
Yeah, not Florida, though. Yeah, that's going to be December before you.
So let me just say, Florida, I was in Fort Lauderdale over the weekend. The dew point dropped to 70.
It did.
Something happened there.
Ooh, 70.
Yes.
Which, sounds crazy, but that's low
It was a big deal for them, yes.
All right, well, let's talk about some of these storms into the southern tier, because some of these could actually turn out to be strong, potentially.
The question is when, and that gives us, an idea of how close it's going to be to the U.S.
So you can see it clearly there. Most of those models take that turn towards the north. So when you see something like that, you have a bit more confidence that, yes, the northward turn is going to happen.
So I'm running here the GFS Ensemble members. So the GFS run is done many times over again. And they're all kind of saying the same thing. And you can even show that the European Center's forecast are doing the same thing also, that by midweek it should be on that northward trajectory. But if you have interest in Bermuda, you're going to want to pay attention to this. And also, this only takes us out to the middle of next week.
Right.
This is even well beyond the cone, by the way. This is, in the 6 to 10 day time frame. We're not done with this thing at that point.
No, and there's a lot that could happen between now and then. I mean, we know what the steering conditions are right now, and there's a forecast for how things are going to change. But any little sort of perturbation in that could affect the track of Lee.
That is such a good point, because what I put on this map here is the steering pattern we think by the middle of next week during that northward turn. If you live in Florida or you live in the southeast U.S., the risk is low, but not zero. It's low. But farther north you go, the greater the risk is. We don't know if there's going to be a trough or a ridge over southeastern Canada, let's say not just by the middle of next week, but beyond that, when it really matters, like in the next 10 days. We don't know what the phase of the mid-latitude pattern is going to be. This thing could get uncomfortably close to the northeast U.S. in about 10 days. We need to watch this very, very carefully.
Yeah, and think about it. Even if we said, okay, we absolutely know what it's going to be.
Right.
the speed of the storm itself could change, and that could change everything down the road. I mean, there's just so much that we have to filter through to get there.
There's a lot of uncertainty to unpack. Again, if you live in the Southeast or Florida, you can kind of like keep this in mind, but I think the risk is low. But the farther north you go, the risk goes up. We just don't know what that jet stream is going to look like that far ahead.
Yeah.
Things that stick out make me nervous, like the Cape, and like just you look at what's sticking out in the eastern U.S. We got to keep an eye on really all of it. Well, the summer season though is coming to a close. Plus the rip current risk, which is high still across the east coast of Florida. You can see that stretching all the way down almost to the Miami beaches. There's also some spots where the red flags will be flying. We've got a high rip current risk there on the panhandle of Florida, including beaches around St. George Island, Cape San Blas, and over towards Panama City. There's a little spot up there in the northern part of North Carolina coastline, including around Corolla. So a number of areas where you got to be swimming right by those lifeguards. Never swim alone, and make sure you know how to swim before going into the ocean. I know that seems obvious, but sometimes it happens. People go into stand. They think they're just going to be soaking in the water a little bit, and then all of a sudden the waves pick them up. We've got some really warm water temperatures out there. This is Gulf Shores, Alabama, 87 degrees. Air temperature will be close to that, about 94 today. Panama City Beach, again, we've got that high risk of rip currents, 86-degree water temperature. Air temperature is going to be in the upper 80s. Sunshine. Overall, a beautiful beach day. It's just that you got to be wary of those rip current risks. All right, so the UV index, it is still running high or very high all across the southeast today. Even spots where we're going to see a couple of showers moving through, like into Mississippi. We are going to watch for enough sunshine out there to drive up that UV index. Clearwater Beach, checking in with you. We've got temperatures in the upper 80s today. It's going to be a hot one per usual. Water temperatures are in the mid 80s out there in the Gulf of Mexico. And we take it out to Miami Beach. Now, again, keeping a watch on those rip currents just north of there is a high risk. We've got a moderate risk in Miami Beach and on the local areas. 85-degree water temperature, air temperature upper 80s. No rain in the forecast. Alex?
Yeah, not bad at all. Well, whether it is